We're now going to hear from Dr. David S. Berry, who is Dean of the Faculty of Law at the University of West Indies Cave Hill campus. He teaches in the area of general public international law and regional integration law. Among his most recent books is a book on the Caribbean integration law. So, Dr. Berry?
I have a 2-slide PowerPoint. That would be possible. Otherwise, I can just skip it.
Oh, you want to try to do it on the fly here?
I don't know. Yeah.
Let's get
If you have a techie.
yeah.
All right.
Can you start?
I don't need it. Good afternoon. I have 2 slides. I wanted to show you 2 maps of the region from which I come. But if we don't see them now, we might see them a little later on. I thank the conference organizers for inviting me to come and speak today. I take my remit, it's been confirmed already, as being to touch on some of the overarching themes likely to rise over the course of this afternoon and tomorrow. And really, I'm going to follow up on the previous 2 speakers and elaborate on some of the points that they've made and try to put them in a bit of context. And if we think about it, some of us have come from very far around the globe to speak in the next couple of day and a half about integration and international dispute resolution in small states. And what I'd like to do in the next few minutes is unpack some of these terms, starting with the phrase small states. By the term small states, the conference organizers have focused on states with a population of 1.5 million or less. But surely there are other measurements by which smallness can be judged, such as territorial size, gross domestic product. Moreover, some entities are considered small on one of these measurements, but may not be small on the other 2 measurements. And some are clearly small in all 3 senses. What does this tell us? It tells us that small states come in a variety of shapes and sizes, and that as a group, they may be tremendously heterogeneous. For example, let me illustrate this point by looking at the region that I come from, the Caribbean. The main regional organization, as we've heard, for integration and potential dispute resolution in the Commonwealth Caribbean is the Caribbean Community. CARICOM member states are amongst the most heterogeneous states in the world in a whole number of different ways. Geographically, the member states of the Caribbean Community are dispersed throughout the Caribbean Sea Basin area and slightly beyond. We have gone beyond the Caribbean Sea to swim down along the southeast coast of South America. They stretch all the way from Belize in Central America to the Bahamas, close to Miami, to Jamaica, just below Cuba, Haiti, and then on to the eastern Caribbean island chain, all the way down to Guyana and Suriname in South America. Their geography is varied. Some lie on the continental land masses, and others are located on islands. These different locations have led in turn to tremendous variance in the available natural resources. Even in terms of territorial size, member states of CARICOM vary significantly. The largest, at 214,000 square kilometers, is Guyana. The second largest, quite a bit smaller, is Belize at 23,000 square kilometers. And then we have minuscule states such as overseas dependent territories of Montserrat and Anguilla, ranking in at 102 and 91 square kilometers. It may be interesting to note that 8 of the 15 CARICOM member states are smaller in size than New York City, which is 781 square kilometers. These are very, very small states indeed. In terms of population, Haiti is by far the largest with over 10 million. Next in size is Jamaica with a population of almost 3 million. And then they go down to as low as a population of 300,000 in Barbados, Grenada at 110,000, and most of the Eastern Caribbean states like Tonga have 100,000 or less inhabitants. Montserrat is a full member state of the Caribbean Community, even though it remains an overseas dependent territory of the UK, and it runs a population of roughly 5,000 persons. Now, culturally, the peoples of the CARICOM share many commonalities, most famously perhaps cricket, carnival, and speak 3 main languages, English, French, and Dutch, and a number of dialects if you've ever traveled around the region. Perhaps common to other small states that will be discussed over the next 2 days, the states of the Caribbean also all share a history of colonialism and have been subject to slavery. Now, the economies of CARICOM member states vary in size from a GDP Keynote Panel PowerPoint, the last one. Last one, yeah. All right. The economies vary in size with a GDP of nearly 44,000 US dollars for Cayman Islands, an associate member state, to $33,000 for Trinidad and Tobago. I think that's dropped recently as a result of the fall in oil prices, to 26,000 GDP for Bahamas, 9,000 for Jamaica, and down to $1,800 for the US. So we see tremendous variance even within this small region of the world. And why I've given you all these figures is to illustrate the need for care in generalizing any analysis of particular small states to small states globally. Commonalities will exist, but the discussions of small states must be contextualized within their particular historical, sociological, economic, and geographical circumstances. So that's the point about small states. What about integration? We've been using that term. Now, when thinking about integration, it may be useful for us to remember that very different forms of integration exist globally. As highlighted by scholars such as Bella Balassa and Ali Agra, economic integration models range from free trade areas to customs unions to common markets to complete economic unions and potentially to complete political unions. All right, if we can get to the second slide. Okay. There we go, that's the map. So what I wanted to do was show you, it doesn't look like it has a light on it, but way down behind my key panelists, I've even extended the map to show Guyana and Suriname. So CARICOM goes all the way from Belize, far over on the left in Central America, right up the island chain to the Bahamas, to Jamaica, to Haiti, the Eastern Caribbean island chain, down to Guyana and Suriname. So it covers the whole of the Caribbean Sea, and we've in fact extended the Caribbean Sea a little bit further to the southeast. So even though you think you're in the Atlantic, you're really in the Caribbean Sea, at least as far as CARICOM is concerned. All right, so when thinking about integration, it's useful to remember that there are these different models. And each model, I think that when I'm talking about these things to my students, the students tend to see them as a natural progression. But this is not what Bella Balassa meant when he described these models. It's not appropriate to say it's an evolutionary progression from free trade areas to complete economic unions. That you can, different models have their own benefits, and it's important to remember that, especially in the context of small island states and what they wish to enter into. More interestingly, and again returning to my area of the world, the Caribbean region, different models can exist simultaneously in the same geographic space with overlapping membership rights and obligations. 7 of the 15 CARICOM member states, as we've heard, are also member states of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean. There you go. It's a little bit blurry, but it's the states on the right, the small island states on the right. Now, this latter sub-regional grouping shows potential for deeper integration than the larger grouping. And contrary to Dr. Kessie, I think that there are significant gains already and regionally in the OECS. Now, they have not been so much as in trade, but in other areas of integration. But I see those gains as being significant. Now, are there consequences for such overlapping membership? There is at least the potential for conflicting obligations for states, which are simultaneously members of more than one regional organization. Now, of course, such conflicts tend to be actively avoided by member states, which will try to prevent breaches of one treaty by actions taken under another treaty. But they are possible, and in the Caribbean, this is perhaps an emerging reality. Another important difference to stress about small states and regional economic integration is one about attitudes. Many newly independent states fiercely reject any potential loss of sovereignty, and this attitude affects their willingness to integrate. Most CARICOM member states, for example, became independent following the early 1960s and share a common history of colonial oppression, including its worst form, slavery. These states are understandably suspicious of restrictions imposed from abroad, whether from London or from Georgetown, Guyana. This is a variable that must be taken into account by anyone seeking to work with Caribbean small states, as it will have ripple effects over several areas of international legal relations. Finally, dispute settlement. In terms of dispute settlement available to states, we of course have the wide range of mechanisms available under international law, including the trustee list established by Article 33 of the Charter of the United Nations. Now, different regional organizations expand upon these mechanisms of dispute settlement, and some have offered additional ones. Judicial settlement, for example, in the Caribbean now includes both direct and indirect petitions by individuals to our final regional court, the Caribbean Court of Justice, or CCJ. The CCJ, acting in its original treaty interpreting or international legal jurisdiction, can hear disputes brought by member states, CARICOM, the regional organization, persons, and cases referred by national courts. The referral jurisdiction is similar to the EU's preliminary reference procedure, for those familiar with that. Now, these latter mechanisms allow an individual, whether a natural or juridical person, to challenge a state before the court. And this brings far-reaching potential for accountability under the rule of law. This is an important development, and I think the nuances of individual petitions before a regional economic court will require study for some time to come. Additionally, as we will explore in the next couple of days, one of the oldest private mechanisms of dispute settlement, arbitration, is being increasingly used by and in small states around the globe. In CARICOM, for example, active efforts are currently underway to create a model arbitration law, one that will incorporate the UNCITRAL model law into most jurisdictions. Such standardization, if successful and if accompanied by ratification of the New York Convention, will make the Caribbean a much more attractive place for international commercial arbitration. So let me wrap up by noting that both individual judicial enforcement and private arbitral enforcement mechanisms have the potential to enhance compliance with rules of international and national law. They also have the potential to speed up legal integration, whether in terms of common commercial practices or common regional economic norms, by creating shared legal understandings. I hope that some of these issues will be elaborated on over the next couple of days. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Barry. Apologies for having you have to dance with the IT.